is also Phil Cheney. His topic is the Emperor of Dreams. Over the last 20 years, research has resulted in the concept of distinct right brain and left brain functionality being discredited. However, recent studies have shown that the dual functions of the brain do explain what happens when we dream or have intuition, and the dangers of trying to repress our dreams. In this talk, we will learn a little bit about dreams and a lot about ourselves. Our featured speaker on this topic will be Phil Cheney. Phil, Philosofree Cheney, is awed by the cosmos and excited about human potential. He's a Renaissance man who appreciates life, having worked in over 55 countries, including as a university lecturer in his native Australia, trade leader in Thailand, government budget consultant in Papua New Guinea, software distributor in Zimbabwe, marketer in Germany, building construction in China, farm exporting in Japan, and author in his current home in Toronto. Philosophy is a mystic who is curious about integrating science and the metaphysical. He has published 8 books, 5 CDs of original music, and won awards for software design and clinical practice in medicine. His education background includes degrees in economics, business administration, and information technology. Phil prioritizes his wife, daughters, and grandchildren, and loves to sing and dance with them. So please welcome Phil.
Thank you, Dan. Well, I'm excited to introduce you to the Emperor of your dreams. As you can see, I did a little bit of artwork. It may not be your style, but it is hard to come up with an understanding of how we actually think. And the human brain has for a long time had this, we had these thoughts that the human brain one side of the human brain controls certain functions, and that tasks and thinking tend to be more associated with a particular region of the brain. But actually no one is fully right-brained or left-brained. And the view of the human brain as being split was originated by Roger Sperry in 1974. And what he said is both the left and the right hemisphere may be conscious simultaneously in different, even in mutually conflicting mental experiences that run along in parallel. In other words, even the person who came up with the idea that it was right and left brain didn't actually say that it was sort of one side or the other. So I'm going to do a little bit of, move across to a little bit of a personal story now, because this is not going to be just intellectual stuff. I want to talk about how the brain actually affects your dreams and what those dreams, how they can be worked with. So going back to around about the late 90s, I had some regular dreams. The dream were always the same. You may have had that experience yourself, where you have the same dream and then you have it again and then you have it again. It may be a nightmare, it may be a good dream, but it's repeating. And my dream was that I was on top of one of those old World War II concrete bunkers. You know, you've probably seen photos of them. They're just big, massive concrete, and they were there intended to stop shells from entering into the where the soldiers were below. And I was on top of this bunker. I'd just come out of this steel trap, and I was lying on top of the bunker, and my arms and my legs were cut off. So I was bleeding. I didn't have arms. I didn't have legs. And it was not a happy experience, needless to say. And then I had the same dream again, and then I had it again. And what was this trying to tell me? Well, eventually I talked to my friend Rob, who is a psychologist in Melbourne, and we sat down over a long lunch, and he talked to me, asked me questions about what I was thinking, and then eventually, because he knew me reasonably well, he asked me this question: when was the last time you got in touch with your artistic side? And I just burst out into tears. I realized that I hadn't been playing music for nearly 15 years. I hadn't been involved in doing art for nearly 15 years. I hadn't been involved really in that part of myself. So there is something about that aspect of balance, of needing to have an awareness of what your own needs are, which is what your emotions and your dreams can actually lead you to. So we're going to talk a little bit about the narrow thinking versus broad thinking now. You see, there is in the right and left brain aspects a need to be vigilant, and that's just the normal awareness of what's going on around the place. But at the same time, we are concentrating on our narrow focused attention. So the bird here is concentrating on picking up the pebbles because it's food. But the dog is aware in a different way to what the bird is, and consequently is in a situation of being able to pick up some of the dangers of not being just focused. And in my case, the reason why I spent 15 years not doing my music, okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It just told me I was signed out, so I don't know what happened then. Anyway, as long as you can still hear me, I'll continue. In my case, the narrow focused attention was the fact that I had my own software company and I was working 12 hours a day trying to create an international business. And I lost part of myself in doing that. And what the dream was telling me was to come back and look at the bigger picture. And that is, of course, one of the big aspects that are required in terms of balance and in terms of being aware and happy in your life. So when we're looking at the strategics part of our life, as you can see here, we've got the shogun looking at a map of his battles that he's planning out here, and his advisor, the person who's got the list, is saying, "Hey, here's an inventory of all the plant species that grow on the field of the battle." But the shogun doesn't want to know that. He wants to know where things are so that he can win the battle. And changing from moving towards, from the focus on the attention to detail to looking at strategy is the subject of one of the stories that Nietzsche told. Nietzsche is a philosopher a German philosopher, and this is what he said. "There was once a wise spiritual leader who governed the community so well that it flourished. And as it grew, he realized he couldn't deal with all the concerns of state. He needed somebody to help to get involved with the aspects of them if he was to retain his ability to see things that were really important. So he appointed the brightest and best minister, this guy over here, to be his representative in the detailed work. The minister soon began to feel that he was the one who did the real work and that an overview role was irrelevant. So he thought he was the person who was most important. So he took upon himself the authority and rebelled against the leader. Unfortunately, he didn't know what it was that he didn't know. And as a result, both the leader and the minister and the realm that they both served fell into disarray. So when we're in danger, it turns out that the right inferior parietal lobe of our brain causes a specific inhibition of the right brain. And when we are safe and considering what Maslow called the higher needs of self-actualization, esteem, love and belonging, that same lobe inhibits the left brain. So there is in fact this part of our brain that actually says, I'm going to focus on one or the other. And the inhibitor is going to determine whether I think from a broad context or whether I go into the very detailed context of what's maybe best for me and not thinking about the broader context or social implications. And what's the purpose of this inhibiting one side of our balanced, what should be balanced thought? Well, imagine what might have happened if my thought energy while I was in the danger of my life was directed to what I felt was the purpose of life. I probably wouldn't be here to give this talk. On the other hand, I'm sure you can relate to how annoying the practicalities of life are. For example, when someone interrupts you when you're making love or having a great conversation with your mentor about your future. So, what's all that got to do with dreams? Well, it makes sense that there's a body function that balances out tendencies to be too kind versus too pragmatic. And I intend to show you that this sensible function can also lead us into trouble as a society if and when it inhibits too much. So what we need to do is we need to look at why we're blocking part of our thinking. And why we do that is because we have felt a need to concentrate on one thing. So this is actually a painting, it's a dot, it's meant to be a dot painting. And each of those dots are the points of paint that make up the whole vision. And without the dots, you don't get the full picture. But without the vision of the whole, you don't see the painting. So part of the problem is that we may be blocking what we can get from dreams and intuition. And there's no doubt that we have more information available to us than at any time in history, and more unhappiness and sorrow and depression because they're at record-breaking levels in Western society. By the way, these slides that I'm using here are from a Oxford psychiatrist, Ian McGilchrist, who wrote the book called The Master and His Emissary. I'm just mentioning that as a shout out to him because he's done a great job in terms of explaining this stuff. Sorry? Aren't they? Okay. Can everybody see the 5 reasons to pay attention to your dreams now? Okay.
Yes.
Good. So what is it that it is important to pay attention to our dreams? First of all, dreams provide insight about meaning. So when I think it was Julia said she was feeling bored, it's dreaming can give you insights about what it is that you're actually looking for, because it's so important to be able to have insight, and to be aware of that. Your body actually comes up with some notifications. That's one reason to pay attention. It helps you to recall who you actually are. We were having a discussion before everybody joined about how important each person is, and it's important for each of you to recognize the importance, the value that you have in society and what you are contributing, and then get in touch with your submerged feelings, because so many of us have things that we don't want to even acknowledge that are going on inside of us. And the reason for that is very sensible, because we maybe not be able to cope with it. But we won't know until we intentionally recognize it, accept it, and then work with it. And it can also lead to understanding our relationships a lot better. I know my wife and I talk about our dreams every morning when we wake up, so that we can understand what's going on and what are the cues that help us to understand each other. And finally, it provides the courage to connect to the ex-conscious or subconscious wisdom which we need in order to be able to navigate our life. So clearly, imagination and reason are both associated with hemispheres, but you need both. You need imagination, and imagination requires both hemispheres, and for reason you require both hemispheres. So it's not a matter of trying to be just one-sided. What our call is to have integration rather than focus on one side. So the question is about this subject is, who is your emperor? Who's actually controlling your life? Are you, like I was, focused down on the detail of doing the job and losing the perspective on the broad, open things that are going on in your life? Or are you looking at the other side, got the broad awareness, but not paying attention to detail? So who is the emperor is actually the one who is taking the focus of most of your attention. And if your emperor is the attention to detail, there are concerns that can occur. It's important to include both. And why is there a need to be more passionate, in my view, about the right hemisphere, about the area of being able to be aware of love and concern and compassion for other people? Because both language and reason are in both hemispheres, so why would I be promoting the emperor that should be on the right hemisphere, the one that's broad? Well, as you can see, there is so much detail that's being presented to us. As it says here, never in the field of human history has so much been used by so many to say so little. We are so given to being able to pay attention to little things like what's going on in Instagram or phone calls or whatever, and miss the broader context of what's happening in many cases. So the view of self can be changed by allowing intuitive thinking, which has the capability to grow our consciousness and our capacity. Intuition is acknowledging that there is something within us, in each of you as well, that can inform us about where we need to move. Secondly, my mind-body or body-mind is not just thinking, it is equally feeling, interpreting, and intuitive. And when you get balance, you have joy, which is a sense of ongoing worth and belonging. So for me, getting that balance back in my life only came when I recognized that I was out of balance and when I could go back to the bigger picture. And therefore balance, not happiness, is my goal. And that makes sense to me because happiness is generally ephemeral. So what Einstein has said, and I love this man, he said that the intuitive mind is a sacred gift. And that's the broad context. But the rational mind is a faithful servant, and we need both of them to work together in order to be able to understand our dreams and to be able to understand and apply in our lives. So what are dreams? Well, dreams are interpretations of the past. Yes, they are. But they are also attention and awareness of current realities. And dreams of what you currently are inhibited from reaching towards. So there is past, present, and future. And all of that is presented to us in different forms within dreams. So it may be that you actually dream about something that happened, You may be dreaming about something that is relevant right now, or dreams that might be something that pointing you towards something that is calling you to a different change in your life. But a good emperor sees past, present and future. And the best part of the bureaucratic focus is when it serves in partnership with the emperor. If you are aware in the broad context of your mind, and that part of your brain is able to lead you to then control and work with your focus. So I know some of you are probably thinking, well, how do I actually do this? How do I actually understand my dreams? Well, first of all, most of the writers about dreams, and I've read quite a few books about dreams, all advocate the same thing. First, respect them and log them. When you get up in the morning or in the night, when you have a dream and you can recall it, don't just think, oh, well, that's a dream, but rather, no, it's got a message. Write it down. Write it down on a piece of paper, or just get your phone, and if you're on your own, you can just put the recorder on and just say, this is what I was just dreaming. Secondly, own them. Don't allow others to interpret your essence. They are your dreams, not somebody else's. So don't allow somebody else to say, well, that's what the dream means. It may mean that, but it's your dream. And spend time on each dream to acknowledge it and working out what it's saying to you. Discuss each dream and be aware of the impact of it. If it's low impact, if it's not really a strong impact, it may be that it's just a hint. But the dream that I was having was certainly no hint. It was a big, strong dream, and I needed to pay attention. Don't allow your dreams to conflict with your rational bureaucrat. Just because you have a dream doesn't give you an excuse for not doing dishes or going to work the following day. I'm sure you will probably at times feel like, well, I had that dream, I'm not going to go to work because I'm afraid that, and I got now a reason to not have to do my work. But rather invite synchronicities, light bulbs, creativity. Allow yourself to say, there is something going on inside me that is really informing me and can lead me on. So that's really what I wanted to present today. I wanted to give you the opportunity to think about not right and left brain being your particular bent, but rather you've got both and you need them both to work together. And this particular piece of art I did because it's called the Gold Skulls, and it's about the fact that we actually do have something of value within every aspect of our thinking and our dreaming. And I'll leave you at that point.